to show you all the easy techniques to make this cute Santa hat. And you're going to love it. It's going to be easier. It's going to blow your mind. All right, let's get started. We have our plain hat metal wreath base. And what I have, I'm going to start with, this is a 5-yard piece of our red glitter wired ribbon. And I'm going to keep it in one long piece, and I'm not going to pre-cut my pieces because depending on the width of your ribbon, how tight and the overlap, each piece we're going to end up cutting could be different. So I just cut it as I go. Let me show you what I mean. So I have my wreath, and I'm going to start at the base of my hat. Not this part, that's where we're going to put our mesh, but I'm going to start right on top of it here. And what I want to do is I'm going to take my ribbon, and I'm just going to go like a few inches past each side. Here, I'm going to get these out of your way. So this is going a little past where the frame is. Maybe a couple inches that way and a couple inches this way. And then I'm going to cut it off of my piece, or you can do this off of your bolt of ribbon. Then I'm going to keep my ribbon and flip it over. So now the hat base is sitting on top of my ribbon. And I want it so it's overlapping just a little bit where the ribbon is coming kind of past this part. And what I'm going to do is, what we're wanting to do is we're going to create a fold. And if you can see, there's a little plain piece. We don't want to make it even because this has an angle to it. That will make all of your ribbons sit really weird. So you want to pull it nice and tight against the frame, which will create an angled piece like that. So what I want to do is I kind of see where that angle part is going to go. Sit it on top of that. Nice and tight that way. And I am going to put some hot glue. Well, hot glue, but I like the cool temp because hot temperature will basically take your skin off as you go. So I like the cool temperature hot glue, but that means you just have to work a little bit faster because it cools faster. So see how I'm just folding it down like that? There's gonna be these pieces, but don't worry. We're gonna have so much mesh covering up, you won't even see it. But if it does bother you, you can just go ahead and clip it off. Then I'm gonna do the same thing to this side, and I'm gonna pull it so it's really taut, really tight. And I'm gonna put some glue right where it's overlaying, pull it nice and tight, and it's gonna have those V points. Because when I flip it back over, this is going to be the start of our red Santa's hat. Okay, so now I'm going to take another piece from my bolt and go over just above it. I do want to layer it just a smidge because I don't want this gap here like this. So I am gonna fold it over just like maybe a half an inch or so. So remember, you're gonna take it so it's about 2 inches off each side. I'm gonna flip it over so I can see where this one is, and he's kind of sneaking up on me. But what I'm gonna do is overlap it like that so the seams are covering. Remember, we don't want a space. So I'm going to make my bottom ribbon flat, and to keep them all together, I'm just going to run a little line of glue at the very top, just under the wire. And I'm going to take it just maybe a half an inch. And when you glue it, make sure you still have your 2 inches going off because that's how we're gonna fold it under. So that's glued and it's gonna be like that. Flip it back over. And this guy is not wanting to stay down. So what I'm gonna do is, see how it's below that? I am just going to take some glue along the frame, oops, and I'm going to roll that ribbon up and stick it kind of underneath so he stops moving on me so much. Sometimes your ribbon doesn't, all depends how, your type of ribbon and everything, but I just put a little glue there and I'm gonna push this down and tuck this up. So now it will stay more at the base of my frame. Like that, a little more glue. Remember, what's nice is I can even overlap it on top of the ribbon, but we're gonna have so much mesh that you're not even gonna see this little messy corner right here. I'm gonna cut off that little excess ribbon. Okay, so now that's in place. Make it easier for the rest of it. I'm gonna flip it back over. Going to pull that nice and tight to make sure we're staying with the frame angle and kind of see where it's gonna be. So then you can put some glue on the top of the pullover piece and you're gonna pull it nice and tight down. So it's kind of going over this part, which will help hold it. And then I'm gonna glue the top of that right there. Pull it that way so it's tight and then over kind of at the same time. So this is what the back is looking like. You're gonna have angles and folds, but what matters is that our front is looking really solid and it's going to be this really pretty solid glitter Santa hat. And you're gonna continue doing that all the way. Remember, overlap about maybe 1/4 to 1/2 inch. Take your edges 2 inches out. Stick him. I flip it over so I can really see how much is overlapping. I'm going to overlap it just a smidge. Make sure you have your inches on each side. Going to take my glue and run it right there. Just a little overlap. Now, the overlap doesn't really matter, but I do like to keep it pretty uniform, so these stripes are about the same size. It doesn't have to be exact, but you know, you don't want one being like this and then the next one like this. So just about the same every time. So we've glued that on. Gonna pull that so nice and tight. Glue it. Do the same thing on this side. Pull it out and then fold it over like that. Now, if you want these to stick down flatter, because if you're putting it against your door or something and you don't want that to bother you, you can take this and just glue the whole thing flat. And if you really like your projects to be finished on all sides, you can always take a ribbon or some felt or fabric and cut it into the triangle piece and then just lay it over once you're done. But for now, this one, we're just gonna worry about how pretty the front is. Kind of measure a couple inches off of each side. Gonna put my glue close to the end, just under the wire. Make sure I have inches each side. Try to make it straight. Push it down. Flip it over. Glue it nice and tight. Pull it out. If you want, you can do the whole piece so it's more flat. Woo, it's even warm through the ribbon. Looking so cute and sparkly. I love glitter. All right, a couple inches there. Now, you know, we're using red because we're making it a Santa hat, but you could really use any kind of ribbon. You could make a birthday hat, an elf hat, even a Santa hat. You could use stripes or polka dots. And I am a big pattern person. I love patterns. I think, see, like here's a ribbon we're gonna use for our bow, but even a striped hat, any kind of, for any holiday or event would be really cute. Could do like a Dr. Seuss hat. So you're just gonna keep doing this. Endless possibilities. Now, obviously, as you get up, it takes less and less ribbon. So that's why I like to cut it as I go, because then you can just measure real easy what you need. And it doesn't have to be exact. Different amounts off the edges each time is totally fine. Remember, we're just worried about having enough to pull it over to be flat. Now, the reason I do it in separate pieces instead of trying to wrap it, you know, like going around and around, if you watched our witch hat tutorial, we just wrapped it with mesh and gathered it. But that is more forgiving and it can tighten against the angles. When you try to do ribbon and you're wrapping it instead of doing these separate pieces, the angle tends to create pockets where it sticks out or it gets really thick as you're going. So I like to do the separate pieces because, as you can tell, our angles are staying perfect with the hat. There's no extra puckering or extra fullness. The pieces just makes it really simple. You might take a little more glue this way, but it really doesn't take much, and it's just a really clean look when you do it this way. Oops. Flipped it too early. Take that. Push it down right there. Glue. Oh, flying glue stick, watch it. And the glue, spiral. Oh, nice and tight. That one moved on me a little. Glue and wrapped. So see how they're just kind of coming into each other? This could also be a really cute Christmas tree where you could make it all green and then have some colors down here to be like the tree skirt and some presents. And I love these wreath bases. They're very versatile. And over. I really like the Christmas tree idea. I think we'll make a tutorial on that. If you want to see a Christmas tree, please comment below. Let us know the techniques that worked for you, what you didn't like. We are always trying to improve, and we know a lot of you are so smart, so creative, that we would love to hear what you've done with these things. You know, all of us, we're all here to inspire each other is how we see it. That one's getting a little long because we're going up here to the tippy top. So you just kind of trim it. And it looks like this is going to be our very last piece. So when we angle it, it does go over, but we're just gonna trim it. So I'm gonna do that. And I'll show you at the top, if it goes over the tippy point, it doesn't matter. It's just gonna make it a little taller. But the tricky part here is that it's gonna be pretty wide. So what I do is on this part, I'm gonna put it like in the middle to be sure that it's catching, because if I do the end, it could go over too far. So I'm gonna do that. And then the part that's overlapping it, that went off the edge, I'm just gonna trim. Now this is gonna be our very last end, so you're gonna see it. You know, if you flip it over, it's dangling. So what I like to do is I'm going to actually fold this piece over here. So when I go over it, so this is it open, and I just fold it to go along the edge like that, and I'm gonna glue it, and then I'm gonna take it over and make it that way. That way, if there's no loose pieces hanging over that end. So I'm gonna do this. Glue that, and then take this for our final little tippy top of our hat. Nice and tight. Now, like I said, if the back bothers you, take a piece of fabric or some wide ribbon. You know, if you have a 4-inch, you could start here and just kind of cover it. But the backs don't bother me because it's gonna be up against my door. So cute. That is the tippy top of our hat. Looking lovely. So now what we're gonna do is we are going to add the kind of cottony, puffy part of Santa's hat. There are, you know, a lot of options where you could just keep it with just white, but I really love our cotton ball mesh. So I'm gonna put the two together. When you get to your mesh part, There are so many options. You could do the rolled technique, you can do our pulled technique. We just did our witch's hat. If you've seen that one, I think I mentioned it already. We did rolled mesh. And since I've already shown you what the rolled mesh looks at the bottom of the hat, I am going to show you this time what the ruffled look goes like. So this is 10-inch wide mesh, and I'm cutting them into 18-inch pieces. This, you can use fabric mesh, burlap mesh, whatever. What I'm using here is our white metallic with the silver in it to kind of really catch the light. And then I'm also going to use our red metallic that has the white cotton ball in it. Okay, so those are 18-inch pieces. Now, how many you're going to use is going to differ. How full you do it, if you do 2 pieces in each grouping or 1 piece in each group. I'm just going to start with 5 pieces of each, and I usually do have to cut more. But this way, I'll have my bolt left over for other projects or for decorating or Christmas tree decorating. I love mesh and Christmas trees. So I like to just use what I need, and then I can just always keep cutting. All right, so I have my 5 pieces at 18 inches each. And then what I'm gonna use is some zip ties, and we're just using the 8-inch ones, and I'm going with white so it blends really nice. Now, make some room here. For the ruffled technique, what I'm gonna do is I take the mesh and I'm just gonna fold over the edge like that so it kind of hides the raw edge. And then I flip it back over as it grabs all my other pieces. And I'm gonna take it down like that. And what I do is I just kind of run my hands in the middle like this, gathering it as I go, and then tucking this piece in. So as I'm gathering it, it kind of looks like, you can push it out to be like a flower or a butterfly, however you see it. And I want to do 2 next to each other. I like when there's 2 together. So you can either take your scissors, and kind of hold it down. Or if you work with mesh a lot, you can still do it while you hold it in your hand. But you take your fold, popped out. Mesh it together, gather it. And then I am going to put them next to each other. So it's kind of like a half and half. And then I'm going to take my zip tie and I go right in the middle where my fingers are holding. And then I'm going to take it around, and I'm going to start at the tip of the base. And then you just cinch it really nice and tight as you can get it. Leaving the zip tie in the messy back, and we will cut it at the end. So what you're going to want to do with it. So it's going to start the end. Now I'm going to do the same thing over and over. You can also add ribbon on top of your mesh, which I think more ribbon always makes it better. But this time for Santa, I am going to leave it just being mesh and then add a bow to it. If, say I was going to do an elf hat or birthday party hat or our witch hat, I added ribbon into it. And it just makes it, really fun and wild. But this Santa hat, I'm going to try and go a little more traditional, just staying with the red and white. Now, when I put this one on, I'm going to have the white one be next to the red, so it's really spread across. If you want more predominant stripes, you would have your groupings be next to each other. But I want everything blended for this, so I'm going to make it go white, red, white, red, white, red. Then I'm going to go around my witch hat. I'm sorry, this is a Santa hat. Pull it nice and tight and push it so it goes against the other one. We really want it really nice and full. So when you're cutting, be careful that you don't accidentally snip your mesh. Very easy to do. And it's probably even easier just to cut them at the end. But. Okay, so we're just going to continue doing that. And so we fold it. And which color you squish first doesn't really matter, because once you have it, you know, you can flip it back and forth. Curl my end, flip it, and then right next to each other. You don't want them on top, so that kind of forms a nice circle. Zip tie it around, just kind of hold it until I can get to my hat base. Now, oh, I forgot which way I was doing it. Going that way. So maybe, you know, it depends how your mesh goes, your zip tie. If it ends up being more an up and down thing instead of a side to side thing, alternate which one was on top. Mine is turning out to be more up and down mesh. So this time I have the white one on top and the red on bottom. Next time I will flip it. Pull it nice and tight. And then as you go, you can kind of fluff it to see if you're going to need a little more fullness or something. You can add one up high, one down low. Pucker. Ooh. Mesh, you know, mesh likes to grab everything around it. Like that, zip tie. So I did white on top last time. So this time I'm going to put the red one on top. And sneak it right next to this one. If you don't want it to be crazy, crazy full, that's a really easy fix. You just keep them further apart instead of mushing them so close together. You really get to pick how full and how busy you want to make your hat. So basically, that has been my 4 pieces of each. So I have one more group cut, and I'm going to put it in, and then we can kind of see how many more we're going to need to cut. Red on top, so this time let's do white. So when I go to do it, you can tell I'm kind of pushing the mesh up because I don't want to cinch it underneath my mesh. So I kind of push it up out of the way. And then I'll, this one right next to it. Flip it over. I'm sure your mesh is staying on the front part of your hat and it's not sliding around back as you kind of play with the zip tie and turn it all around. Force it there, push it over where you want it, and then really cinch it down. Make it stay where you want. Okay, so I cut 5 of each, and I think it's about halfway. So I am going to cut 5 more pieces of each one, and it might need a 6th group, but let's see. So remember, they're 18-inch pieces, and as you can tell, it does not need to be exactly 18. 18-ish works perfectly. Doesn't have to be a straight cut because when it's in the wreath, it's already so wavy and wiggly. No one's gonna know if you took the time to cut everything perfectly straight, or exactly 18. And if you're just doing 1 color instead of 2, what you would do is just cut your mesh into 1-yard pieces instead of these half-yard pieces. That way you still get the fullness as if you were doing 2 pieces. All right, some of our mesh, bring our hat back. Squish them together. Fish them. And that one was the white. And if you don't remember exactly which one you did last, it doesn't really matter. Definitely not the end of the world. Your craft will still be so beautiful. So right now, since the hat is glued onto the top ring, I'm now just putting them here on the bottom rung. Nice and tight. So cute and ruffly. I love it. I really love just making things. Ribbon and mesh can do so many wonderful things, and people are so creative. Just love to see what people make and what you make. Because everyone can take our ideas or our suggestions and usually build on them and make them even better. So if you do, please comment below what you did, how you improved it, or if you just followed it and loved it. You can also, go to our Facebook page and let us see a picture of your creation. We're just Facebook Designer DIY. All right, so you push that. Oh, it makes me so happy. So as you're getting used to it, you notice I don't flip and then flip. While it's down, I've just tucked it under. But when you're first getting started, it's usually easier to flip it around. But I am still tucking it just so we cover those cut raw edges. And it'll keep your hat looking nice for longer. It won't fray so quickly. Go in here. Oh, it looks like the white one was on top, so let's switch it. We're getting closer to the end. Now, if you didn't want it as full, you would definitely be done by now. You could probably do half as many groupings and still be really cute. But for this hat, we're going for crazy full. That one. I think maybe just 2 more groups. So I think I will have to cut some more mesh, but that's easy. Now that I'm getting to the end, kind of what I do so it stays in the middle, I did it on the other side too. There's a couple groups that I go over the entire frame, and then the very end, I do a corner piece so it can't slip off. If you did all of your mesh around both together, it will just end up slipping off. But if I do a couple of them together, they'll be okay. And then this end one that I'll put around the corner will super secure it. So I want 2 more pieces. To finish it off. So I don't want any of the wireframe showing. And since we did not add any ribbon to our groupings down here, I want to make a really kind of wild and crazy and busy bow to accentuate everything. Not necessary, you can still keep yours nice and clean and simple by doing a You could leave it just as is, or you could add a bow with not as many ribbons as I'm going to do. Like we always say, that's the fun part about DIY, doing it yourself, is that you can customize it to your personality. All right, so that one was white on top. I'm gonna do this one, and it's gonna go around both frames, and then we'll do our end one that will secure everything on so nothing can slip off. And these are really tight, it would be hard to slip off, but over time, everything tends to work its way down. That's our little one more, and then going around both and it kind of pinches it together, but this time I'm going to put the last one so it goes through here. Okay. Easy peasy. Which end? Looks like red was on top. So let's do that. Sticking it through right there. Making sure the mesh is on the other side of the wire frame because it wants to come into the back. But when my zip tie starts to get tight, I push it to making sure the mesh is on the front. So all the fullness stays up there. And last little zip tie for that. So cute, our little Santa hat is looking amazing. Okay, so, I mean, really, you could be done and it would be great. But more is better, in my opinion. I love busy, I'm a busy kind of personality. So here is what we're going to do. I have all of these really cute ribbons, and we're just gonna kind of make a big bow right here. It'll kind of sit on top. I mean, you could also work it into here, but I like where it's kind of part of the hat and then over the bottom. So what we're gonna do is I'm going to start with the stripe as the back, because if I use the same ribbon that I did on this, it's gonna blend too much and it's not gonna stand out enough. So I'm gonna make the stripe be my base. Now this one, I kind of want tails up, tails down, tails in every direction. So it takes about a yard of ribbon, depending how big you want to make it. And if you have a whole bolt you're working with, this is what I like to do before. Kind of decide how long you want your tails. And I think I want my bottom tails kind of longer than my top ones. Asymmetrical. It's gonna drive some people crazy. But my husband loves everything very symmetrical, but I like it to be a little wild and crazy. So I'm gonna make these go down like that. And then this is my back loop. So it is gonna decide how big my entire bow is. And I want it to be pretty big and wild and crazy. So I'm gonna make its loops be a little bigger than it feels natural, like that. And then I'm going to take it and what's nice about having so much extra ribbon is I just kind of make it while it's still on the bolt, so I can make it as big as I want. And what I'm gonna do, so I just made my 2 loops with one longer tail going up, and then I'm gonna make these one of our 4 looped bows, sorry. So I make another loop right next to it, about the same size. And then I'm going to just take it, I'm gonna make my last loop, and I just bring the ribbon down like this so the glitter side is always showing. And we do have a lot of our bow tutorials on our YouTube page also. So if you kind of want more detailed on how to make this bow or other style bows, if this one is not your favorite, it really works. We have a lot of fun tutorials. Okay, so I did that. Make sure my loops are about the same size. And then my top tail, I'm gonna make longer than I know I want it, so it will give me room to play with it and I can cut it shorter. So I'm gonna cut it pretty long. So I have a tail here, and 2 loops on each side. Then I'm gonna take my bow wire. Where did my bow wire go? I think I knocked it off. Okay, so I have my bow wire, sorry about that. And I fold it in half, and I just take the loop around the middle of the bow, stick my tails through like that, and then I'm going to pull the wire up front because I'm gonna add more layers. So just kind of pull it nice and tight back and forth, give it a little tug, so the tighter it is in the middle, the fluffier your bow will become. So we have the back big layer of our bow done. Now what I want to do is I am going to add some of these little guys. Usually the narrow ones are on top, but I love this ho 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 for Santa, so I really want it to be my focal point of my bow. So I am going to use 1.5" ribbon as my middle layers. So again, I kind of matched the length of the tail I did for my first bow. And I'm going to use the same thing where I'm just going to take the ribbon, kind of play with it. I want it to just be a little bit shorter than this one so you can still see the ribbons, but I can also pull them around so they don't hide. So just a little bit shorter. And as it's backwards, you kind of just accordion them together. Then I take this ribbon and fold it forward. And what I do is I kind of pull them up like that to make sure they're even. Okay, so we have our 2 loops and a tail, and you're going to repeat that exact same steps where you're going to make your top loop, pull it so it's close to the same size, and then you take your ribbon, flip it this way so the pattern is always on top. If you twist, it can work also, but I just kind of flip them that way, and then leave my long tails. They don't have to be exact because we're going to trim everything at the end. Now, the wire that was there that we used on our back layer, you're just going to set it right on top of that bow. And then you're going to, I kind of hold it down with my hand and tie a single knot. My tail's running away. Nice. You can cinch it nice and tight. And then since it's wired ribbon, everything can be fluffed and moved and changed to where we want it. So that is our snowflake ribbon. Now let's put some polka dots. I love polka dots and stripes together. Going to make my tail, make a loop. I want it to be the same size as this snowflake because I'm going to interchange them so it will go every other one. So since I'm not putting it straight on top of the snowflake, it does not need to be any smaller. That, and I'm gonna make a loop. And then I'm going to put it right on top of the snowflake for wiring purposes. And then I'll show you how we're going to, since I didn't want the polka dot to cover up the snowflake, I'm going to pull them so they alternate. I'm going to make a snowflake, polka dot, snowflake, polka dot. So it looks like one bow when you're all done because it's all one layer. And then over here, I have my tail, my thing, polka dot, tail. So it looks like one layer, but we got it to be 2 different ribbons. So it's all sorts of fun patterns. Now, I told you I want the ho 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 to be my main one. So I'm gonna make the tails kind of long. And this one's a little tricky because you may, if you have enough ribbon, you can make it so your loop definitely shows the word that you're wanting to show. And then we're gonna lay it right on top of our bow. So I really like this loop. And it's a little smaller, so you still see the polka dot and the snowflake and the stripe and everything like that. And for your top layer, you can either do just a 2-looped bow, so it kind of lays right in the middle. It's not too many words. Or you can still do your 4-looped bow. Not every layer has to be the same amount of loops, sorry. So maybe I just want to do a 2-loop on top, but really make sure that the ho 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 shows. That way, since it's wider than the other layers behind it, it won't cover it quite as much. So I'm going to do just a 2-loop on top. Pull it nice and tight. Cut myself some extra tail to play with. And then I tied my wire. And then just for extra security, what I do is I take my wire back around my bow and I just kind of tie a double knot. And then this one, we're just gonna glue on to our hat. So I'm going to cut off the wire. I'm done with that now. Sometimes we use it to wire it onto our wreath or lanterns or whatever. But this one, I'm just gonna really glob some glue on. Okay. Now my ho-ho-ho definitely has a right side and a wrong side. So as I'm looking at my hat before I glue it on, if you're using ribbon with words or images, you want to make sure it's going the right way. So to me, the ho-ho-ho is facing the right way. I'm going to put it kind of like where I have to squish the mesh down, but a little higher so you actually see it. I don't want it to get all lost. So what I'm going to do, and actually I'm going to show you another little trick for this one. I want to cover up my bow wire. Since this is just 2 loops, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take about 6 inches of my 1.5-inch ribbon, or if you have a 3/8, 5/8, it works for all of them. And you can either lay it flat to cover the wire, but I really love to make a knot. So I just make a simple knot. And I pull it so the design shows, and I don't want it too crazy tight. I like it to be kind of a little loose and a little pointy. So I lay it right in the middle of my wreath. That's where my knot is going to be. And then I follow the wire around to the back. So I'm going to go like that and like that. So see, this is how it's going to look like with a center, and this is what it looks like without a center. Both are cute. But for certain bows, I just think adding a knot or a flat center gives it that finishing touch. So I have my knot in the middle. This is a little 2-inch extra ribbon, so I cut it off, and then I'm just gonna put a dab of glue right there and make sure I'm not gluing any tails or loops to be twisted. And then I'm gonna pull this side, and you can trim it, you can fold it, you can do whichever is easiest. This one I'm just folding over. And I'm going, my first time using hot glue. Going to push it down like that. So now our bow has a little finished touch to it. Sometimes when your bow is really fun and crazy, that helps keep it a little cleaner and easier to see. Gives it a little break. It's so cute. So I'm kind of mess with it. Make sure I can see every loop. The tails have their own space. And the wonderful thing about wired ribbon is you can make your loops face up, and then when you store it and bring it out for next year, you can just refluff it and it'll look brand new. Okay, so on your hat, kind of pick where you're gonna want it. I mean, you can put it on there, but I am going to put mine just a smidge higher. Now, I'm going to really put a lot of glue all around the part where I glue the knot. And I like things off-centered, so I'm going to put my bow just a little to the left. You can be in the middle, you can be on the mesh. Now, I'm holding the back of my hat as I push the bow on while the glue dries or cools a little bit. That way, it will hold really nice and tight. Okay. I think that looks good. Now we get to decide how long of tails we want. Do you want like longer ones coming up here? Do you want a little shorter? So it's not as big. And each tail can be a different length. There doesn't have to be one size fits all. And you can do angle cuts. You can do the dovetail cut. You can mix and match. I am a fan of dovetails. I think they're really cute, but I also like intermixing mine. Now, the ho ho ho, I don't want to cut off too much because, like I said, he's kind of the theme of my hat. So, I still think you see this one really cute, so I think I'm just gonna do a little short dovetail on the bottom because you can still see what it's supposed to say. And then this one, I like being a little longer. I like that he sticks up. So, and if you're not sure, cut them a little longer than you think because you can always go back and shorten them. And then we also, you know, we love our fray check. So I will go through and take my fray check and I'll put it on the edges of all of my ribbons so they look nice and clean cut forever. And then, oh, there's this tail, and I love this glitter stripe. So I want to keep it a little longer to make sure that you can see him past all the things. I had to think for a minute. Too many times I've cut an arrow instead. That one's cut. It's super cute. So your hat is really cute, but I feel like it needs that little final touch of a cotton ball on top because Santa is, you know, known for his little cotton ball on top. So I'm going to use this ribbon that we have. It's really cute. It's kind of fuzzy and soft looking. And there are a few different things you can do. You can take some ribbon, or if you have, you know, another cotton ball, and you can kind of loop it, a lot of little loops, and glue it on top. But I am partial to bows. So what I'm gonna do is I am going to make a tiny little tailored, like no tail bow, where I just make a circle. I find the middle point like that. And then right where they're overlapping, I am going to squish it like we did our other bows. And I take a little piece of wire. Your wire is folded in a loop, and you go around and you just pull your tails through like that and pull it nice and tight into the back. And then I will cut my wire off after I tie a couple knots to keep him secure. So yeah, this little cute bow, and he's going to be my little puff top. And again, I want it pretty much to the top of it. So I'm gonna put a nice glob of glue at the very little tippy of the hat. And again, oh, touching. I'm going to push it for a little bit just while it cools so it stays a little longer. And that will be my little cotton top. And if you don't want it to, you know, if you want to add a little something, you could always do like a little loop in the middle. Let me show you how you would do that. So I just cut a few inches off like that. And you make a little tube. And then you kind of just squish it together like that. Now, when the ribbon isn't so holy, you can just glue it on. But with this kind of ribbon, I'm gonna glue mine into a tube. You have to be really careful because the glue will go through and it will burn your little fingers. So just be careful when you're working, depends what kind of ribbon you're using. And since I want it squished more, here's what we're gonna do. I'm gonna take, you know, you could use a whole nother piece of wire, but I have this little scrap laying around, or if you have a zip tie, whatever you wanna use. And I'm going to go right where the seam is where I glued it. And I'm gonna take my wire and I'm just gonna tie it in a knot so it's gathering it more into a little puff. And that will give me something also to glue onto. So now we have like this little tube and the back is cinched together right there. And I'm gonna put glue right in the middle of my bow. This is instead of wrapping a ribbon around to be your center. And what it does, it creates a little center loop to do your middle of your bow to give it some definition. Remember how I said this holy ribbon goes right through? So that would be the little like cotton ball. And if you want it more round or whatever, you can do whatever you like. So there you have it, your really cute Santa hat. Very easy to make, lots of fun, so many possibilities. Really hope you like this. I hope you love making your own. If you want to see more of our fun tutorials, please subscribe to our channel. You'll get notifications. We have so many fun things coming, and happy crafting!